Levack and Goz here with you on 104.5. The team in last night, it's the Louisville Cardinals and the Siena Saints. And if you're watching the television side of the broadcast, you heard this guy on the call for ESPN2. Mike Couzzens joins us here on the phone line. And Mike, Siena's in this game. Why were the Saints so competitive early on in this matchup?
Well, I think it was twofold. First is that Nico Clarith got off to a great start, which is exactly what they needed. My partner, Debbie Antonelli, said, here's a guy who probably needs to score if Siena's going to win this game. Score something in the neighborhood of 30 points. So he got off to a good start. And Louisville, conversely, it's been interesting because Louisville has been a team that's been ranked as high as 16. That was in the preseason. During the season so far, 7 games, they've been ranked as high as 17. They came out with very low energy. And so that was definitely to the benefit of Siena. We were fortunate to get a camera in the locker room with Coach Patsos before the game, and he said, look, last time we played these guys, you guys know, it was 2009 NCAA tournament. That was a 7-point game. If you have us hang around until a halftime, which they did, a 3-point game, he said, you'd be surprised at what you might be able to do. And it was a very impressive first half and really like 3/4 of the game for Siena.
I'm not sure what your scouting report was going into the game, but here locally in the Capital Region, we know about the personality of Coach Jimmy Patsos. What were you told going into the game that you might get with that locker room shot and those halftime interviews with him?
Well, a good friend of mine who's a colleague, Paul Biancardi, is also a Boston native, and he said, he just said, I'm not going to tell you anything more, but you're going to love talking to Coach Patsos. And so for perspective, whenever you do a game on TV, you go to the team's morning practice and you get to talk to the coach a little bit. Some coaches will give you a few minutes and you really have to try and pry information out of them. And for Coach Patsos, I didn't even ask any questions. He's just going, hey, we're going to play a lot of zone. I've 5 years here. I watched Jim Boeheim. I see the zone. I like it. It works for him. Let's see if it works for us. And he said, we're young and we're getting younger. We're going to put Manny Camper in the game for the first time. And I just wish we had, instead of about 15 minutes, I wish we could spend like 15 days just sitting, talking basketball, talking life, because that's a guy who's, as you guys know, has an endless amount of stories.
Yeah, we're going to have a treat talking to him again tomorrow as he preps for the Albany Cup on the way. It's Mike Couzzens. He was on the call last night for Siena, Louisville, right here on Levack and Goz on 104.5, the team. But Siena, in the end, they can't hang on. They can't pull off the upset. What was the difference? Was it straight talent that Louisville in the second half pulled away from the Saints?
That's definitely a big part of it. And running the flex offense that Siena was running against Louisville, you're relying on a lot of precise cuts and things being there at the right time when you need them. So at the MAC level, when you want to come off of a screen on the baseline, turn around, try and get a short corner jumper, try and get open for a 3, try and get something on the block, your advantage will be sometimes your size or your quickness. Now, when it's not your quickness, and it's definitely not your size, I don't know the final tally was last night. I want to say it was in the neighborhood of 13 to 15 block shots for Louisville. That's purely size. You can't expect that you're going to get a lot of good shots at the basket when you're going up against a 7-footer and Anis Mahmoud, a guy, Ray Spalding, who's got a 7'6" wingspan and stands at 6'10". So, that's the big difference between an ACC team and a MAC team. There's going to be more talent, but there's also just naturally more size, which they can recruit there. So, a lot of credit to the execution and the game plan of Siena, but ultimately a team in what I think a lot of people would say is college basketball's most difficult conference. 9.9 times out of 10 is going to be expected to win just because of the talent alone.
Louisville right there in the city. We know so many things have happened off the court this past offseason with the Cardinals. For the fans there, was the atmosphere tainted at all? Did it still feel like a classic Louisville crowd rooting on the Cards?
For the first half, definitely not. It wasn't a packed house. That arena is an NBA-sized arena, and they draw good crowds. I'd say it was somewhere between 15 and 18,000 last night for a non-conference matchup. So that's much better than most arenas in college basketball will ever see. But the first half, I think they were a little bit surprised by what was going on and maybe disappointed, which is a credit to Siena for coming in and dealing a little bit of a blow to Louisville. Then in the second half, the turning point of that game was an 18-0 run midway through the second half. The crowd starts getting into it because of block shots, a couple of threes that go down. So by the end, it was a happy crowd. But, Debbie Antonelli and I were talking about this off the air yesterday, is without having Rick Pitino there, it just doesn't carry the same juice. And that's not a knock on David Padgett. It's just that Rick Pitino is a national championship winning coach, and there's a bit of an aura that goes around that. And so there's maybe something a little bit different because of that with Louisville this year.
ESPN broadcaster Mike Couzzens joins us here on the phone lines on 104.5 The Team. Now, he is a Syracuse guy, and I got to ask at least 2 Syracuse questions just for me here. First about the Orange. Yeah, of course, I got it. I'm going to get crushed on Twitter for this, but I don't care. I'm asking 2 Syracuse questions. First one, the Syracuse Orange team this season. They've lost to Kansas, but reasonable expectations. Can this Orange team still be an NCAA tournament team?
Oh, boy. Right now, my inclination is to say I don't think so, just because it's going to have to be a team where you have Tyus Battle and Frank Howard stay out of foul trouble. You probably need the bigs to play above the expectations of what they normally would be doing. You've got to find a way to make up for the loss of Geno Thorpe, which is entirely unexpected. So I think my expectation right now is no. As an alum and a somewhat impartial observer of their games when I'm not calling them, I'd like to think differently. But right now, I think with the way that how competitive their league is, it'd be a challenge.
Now, please send all hate tweets to @Mike Couzzens. I think it's just one Z there, right? Just send them all off to him. Please deal with that. And I got to get this last question in as well. You and I just barely missed each other. We both used to work for the AAA affiliate of the Washington Nationals, the Syracuse Chiefs, in different broadcasting roles. You, a part of the radio crew, myself, studio hosting and working with those guys. So rank this top 5 for me, if you can, please. Top 5 Syracuse Chiefs broadcasters of all time. Dan Horde, Jason Benetti, Sean McDonough, Kevin Brown, Mike Couzzens. What's the top 5 look like?
I'm going to put Sean at number 1. If you reach Monday Night Football, I think you are easily at number 1. Dan Horde, former voice of the Chiefs and also voice of the Pawtucket Red Sox, has worked with the Reds, works now as the radio voice of the Bengals. He's number 2. I'll give Jason number 3. I will give Kevin number 4, and then and rank myself last because Kevin is a funnier guy who also has much better musical taste than I do. So he gets the jump on me.
Look at that answer. Very political. Put himself last. Didn't the always humble Mike Couzzens. Mike, we appreciate the time, man. We'll be talking again soon. Take care, man.
Thanks for having me on.